Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. And we are zooming in and focusing in today on a very important and interesting topic that is what makes the psychopath dangerous. What makes them a hazard? What makes them a hazard to you as an individual? What makes them a hazard to society at large? Now, when we think of the term psychopath, people immediately think of the Hollywood representation, the ugly, aggressive, raging killer with a machete or a sword or a gun, and they are taking out all sorts of people, and they're just way out there. They are, you tend to think of them as the incarcerated, the violent. That is the Hollywood representation. And now it is to then not understand that these people are not always violent, that they're not always raging. They're not always carrying weapons on their tool belt. They're not walking around with a holster. They're not walking around with, a van to, kidnap people. It is not always an overt appearance of someone who does not fit in. So, you think you could pick people out from a mugshot or something of that nature. It is to understand that that is part of what is a hazard to society, is to understand that those individuals who are psychopathic can be the most attractive, good-looking, charming, suave, and debonair individuals who they may encounter in their neighborhood, their schools, their workplaces, and be running the large corporations or the government positions in politics, in law enforcement, in other shell companies, in other corporations, is to understand that psychopaths are in everyday life. They have a normal appearance and on the outside, but it is what is inside that typifies them as antisocial, i.e., against societal norms, against what makes someone really human or what is humane, which is the feeling of empathy or the feeling of conscience. Why does conscience exist? You might ask that very profound philosophical question, or to understand why does humankind, why is there a brotherhood of man? Why is there, from sea to shining sea, you'll be crowned with brotherhood. What does that mean? Part of our national anthem is to, or excuse me, not our national anthem. It is so I'm not going to go out into that tangent. I'm going to pull it back. But what is conscience about? Why does humankind throughout the globe, why do we have a conscience? You might ask that question because without conscience, there would be just complete chaos. There would be complete plunder. Greed and, as a lot of viewers call it, evil, would just be taking over. It would be to run amok. It would to not have a society if there was no conscience, if there was no morality, if there was no right or wrong. In other words, that negativity would take to the streets and it would just be mass mayhem. Really, and then you ask the question, well then, what does run me, or what have I encountered? And what makes this dangerous? It's to understand that the psychopath does not have that conscience. They are not abiding by right or wrong, even though they might have an office. They might be a snake in a suit. They might be in your family. They might be your spouse. They might be your sibling or your parents. But yet there's a lack or a void of conscience, which means they don't process and have a connection to that which makes one human or humane, i.e., sensitive to the laws and regulations that create the health, the wellness, and the survival of the species. So, for example, if we look at a lot of the process or problems right now It is the overforestation. It is the taking of resources. It's the global warming. It's the plundering. It's taking from over, taking too much from the earth to the point where it can't repair. So it's to have that insensitivity and not caring. That is a danger. That is what makes these individuals dangerous, is they don't have a conscience. They do not care about the consequences that could cause a certain doom or a devastation, a loss of a species, a loss of the globe, a loss of this, the welfare of the next generations. It does not matter to them. All they really care about is their win. In other words, what can they get from the next step? What is in it for them? And oftentimes it is that thrill. It is to ensconce or belay their sense of boredom, for these, certain people in society, that they continue this high risk behavior or exploitative treatment of others. In other words, why they create that divide where they're able to plunder and not feel bad. So most people, if they were to sit on a board of directors and they're going to say, well, if we do this, we'll wipe out 1,000 species in the Amazon. Should we do this? Most people would be like, no, maybe, we need to do an alternative strategy. So in other words, it's to be heartless, it's to be cold, it's to be cruel, but it's even more than that. It's to operate, they operate on a more profound level, meaning that they, will hurt others that are good. In other words, they will have no problem with firing people who have been in departments for years, if not decades, doing great work. They will not want them around. They will take out people who speak up against them. So just by fact of that, they will take them out at the kneecap. So they rule by this intimidation, a very quiet intimidation. They'll just fire people. I mean, you're fired. You're not fitting in. It's this, they will attack that very weakness and, vulnerability or need within others. In other words, the need to fit in, the need to be loved, the need to work cohesively, the need to be recognized. So there's all sorts of vulnerabilities that they tap into and then exploit of others. So that's how this you might heard of like beguiling charm. In other words, it's getting you against your free will in violating your own sense of conscience. In other words, to cause you to doubt that. It's can be as profound as getting you to turn against your country. In other words, violate your own sense of patriotism or nationalism or those higher values which might be part of the culture. And we hear about all these other cultures that are corrupt, where, it can be very profound, and that is what makes it dangerous. That is what makes these individuals dangerous. And so it's to understand that this is how they're operating, and they don't have that, they don't plug into the fear. They don't have the same central nervous system, amygdala, central nervous system reactivity, where most people would be startled, most people would be horrified. These individuals are more even to the point of amused or absorbed. They're just more interested. They don't feel a sense of gut-wrenching horror. They're just more entranced by it. To them, it's just life as usual. So it's to see those qualities are what makes these people dangerous. So if you can understand that, and that not all people are in either, CEO or the higher level status, although, research has been found, Dr. Martha Stout, Snakes in Suits, Dr. Robert Hare, is that these individuals, because of their insatiable need for power or control, or quote unquote the win, to dupe and deceive others, most people would not be after that. That would not be a motivating factor. It's not like I would get up and say, wow, look how many people I can overturn and overpower today. Like, that's not a driving force for me. In fact, it's completely the opposite. It's more, how can I help, support, and uplift those people who have been hurt so that they can recover their sense of health, liberty, and get to know where your limitations are so that you're in your best spot in your life. Like, that's my mission, like, to wake up to that. Some people, that is not what drives them. It's how can I plunder? How can I take? It's the greed. It's the lie, and they will just lie. Just they have a massive ability to be able to do this and not feel bad, not feel regret. And they can't even keep track of their own bottom line. And so that's, even though, it is to understand that these people tend to gravitate towards certain professions, politics, the finance industry, the film industry, that there's certain industries where you're going to find more of this going on. So if you're now like working in that area and you're like, oh my God, peace and harmony, my supervisor, this is what my department is like. Well, then you might say, you know what? I don't want to work with these low integrity sort of snakes. Like, I need to get out, and I need to work with a healthier, supportive, more mellow environment. That is what I need. And so that can be an awareness to say, you know what? Maybe I don't want to work in this industry. Maybe I've seen enough. Maybe it's time for me to reinvent myself and re-educate myself and get myself into a more, healthy, humane, less competitive industry, because there's too much of that. I don't like that aggressiveness. I don't want to hurt another to get myself what I need to do. In fact, there was, again, a great expose on Netflix, and I believe it was either called The Naked Truth or Dirty Money. Forgive me, I don't have the specific title, but it was a testimony of a woman who was trained by her employer to say that her patients that she was trying to get approval for on a medication, it was like a pain medication, and I think it was like an Oxycontin sort of medication, and their question was, does this individual have cancer? And even though they just had back problems, she would respond, uh-huh. And her employer told her basically to violate this. And to basically lie. And then eventually she had to quit because there was so much cognitive dissonance that she could not violate herself. So it's to understand that there are certain dangers where it can get you to the point where it is crippling despair or crippling lack of conscience or guilt, crippling guilt that I can't do this anymore. It's to understand that this can permeate specific employers. And so, letting those go and then going to an employer where it's more mellow, supportive, strength-based, talent-based, and, there's those opportunities. So, and it's to understand also that not everybody is that aggressive, but they can be the very non-aggressive. They can be the very parasitic or dependent type, where then they're, living off of the means of others in order to get by. So where most people would be like, man, I don't like being a sponge off of somebody. Like, I don't like this feeling. I don't like riding on the coattails of this person. I want to feel more powerful. I want to have my own money. I want to have my own job. I want to have my own health insurance. Like, I don't like that, that dependency. I don't like that feeling that I can't generate my own income. I don't like the feeling that I have to siphon off of others. Like, most people would find that disturbing. Like, some people, especially in all spectrums, but, the psychopathic, they have no problem with being parasitic or siphoning money, a place to live, food, even if it's just the bare minimum, these individuals will not feel bad. That's just, so the dangerous part is that they can come, this type of individual can come in a whole spectrum, and to realize that these people are, that what makes it dangerous is that they can exploit you, take from you, deceive and dupe you. With a straight poker face, which most people would flinch and flail, these people have no such guttural or physical reaction. There's a different wiring which makes it so. So to know this to be the case is to say, okay, I understand peace and harmony. That is what is dangerous, and I am now awakened. I am awoke, and that I can embrace, because protection and the higher intelligence will come to my aid. It is to have that faith. It is to know that this encounter has happened. It's to identify it and to know that, you're not alone. Some people have not experienced this, so they are not going to be able to relate. They are not going to understand. They are not going to understand the devastation, the violation. They're not going to understand at that level. So it is to understand that that is what makes it dangerous, and to know that then how important it is for you then to protect yourself, that your goodness, your free will prevail, your humanity will prevail, and how important it is to keep that ignited, keep your flame, keep a big flame, light your own candle within, and make sure it is not snuffed out by these types of individuals who seek to target and victimize, either on a small or global level, your humanity and the goodness of that and the earth. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.